So, April, whenever you're ready, don't forget to unmute.
Okay, I'm ready. Uh, Chapter 5, The Toil of Trace and Trail. 30 days from the time it left Dawson, the saltwater mill, with Buck and his mates at the fore, arrived at Skagway. They were in a wretched state, worn out and worn down. Buck's 140 pounds had dwindled to 115. The rest of his mates, though lighter dogs, had relatively lost more weight than he. Pike, the malingerer, who in his lifetime of deceit had often successfully feigned a hurt leg, was now limping in earnest. Sol-leks was limping, and Dub was suffering from a wrenched shoulder blade. They were all terribly footsore. No spring or rebound was left in them. Their feet fell heavily on the trail, jarring their bodies and doubting the fatigue of a day's travel. There was nothing the matter with them except that they were dead tired. It was not the dead tiredness that comes through brief and excessive effort, from which recovery is a matter of hours, but it was the dead tiredness that comes through the slow and prolonged strength drainage of months of toil. There was no power of recuperation left, no reserved strength to call upon. It had been all used, the least bit of it. Every muscle, every fiber, every cell was tired, dead tired. And there was a reason for it. In less than 5 months, they had traveled 2,500 miles, during the last 1,800 of which they had but 5 days' rest. When they arrived at Skagway, they were apparently on their last legs. They could barely keep the traces taut, and on the down grades, just managed to keep out of the way of the sled. "March on, poor sore feet," the driver encouraged them as they tottered down the main street of Skagway. "This is the last. Then we get one long rest, eh? For sure, one bully long rest." The drivers confidently expected a long stopover. Themselves, they had covered 1,200 miles with 2 days' rest, and in the nature of reason and common justice, they deserved an interval of loafing. But so many were the men who had rushed into the Klondike, and so many were the sweethearts, wives, and kin that had not rushed in, that the congested mail was taking on Alpine proportions. Also there were official orders. Fresh batches of Hudson Bay dogs were to take the places of those worthless for the trail. The worthless ones were to be got rid of, and since dogs count for little against dollars, they were to be sold. 3 days passed, by which time Buck and his mates found him how really tired and weak they were. Then, on the morning of the 4th day, 2 men from the States came along and bought them, harness and all, for a song. The men addressed each other as Hall and Charles. Charles was a middle-aged, light-discolored man, with weak and watery eyes, and a mustache that twisted fiercely and vigorously up, giving the lie to the limply drooping lip it concealed. Hall was a young of 19 or 20, with a big Colt's revolver and a hunting knife strapped about him on a belt that fairly bristled with cartridge. cartridges. This belt was the most salient thing about him. It advertised his callousness, a callousness sheer and unutterable. Both men were manifestly out of place, and why such as they should adventure the north is part of the mystery of things that passes understanding. Buck heard the chaffering, saw the money pass between the man and the government agent, and knew that the Scotch half-breed and the mail train drivers were passing out of his life on the heels of Perrault and Francois and the others who had gone before. When driven with his mates to the new owner's camp, Buck saw a slipshod and slovenly affair. Tent half stretched, dishes unwashed, everything in disorder. Also he saw a woman. Mercedes, the man called her. She was Charles' wife and Hall's sister, a nice family party. Buck watched them apprehensively as they proceeded to take down the tent and load the sled. There was a great deal of effort about their manner, but no business-like method. The tent was rolled into an awkward bundle 3 times as large as it should have been. The tin dishes were packed away unwashed. Mercedes continually fluttered in the way of her men and kept up an unbroken chattering of remonstrance and advice. When they put a cloth sack on the front of the sled, she suggested it should go on the back, and when they had put it on the back and covered it over with a couple of other bundles, she discovered overlooked articles which could abide nowhere else but in that very sack, and they unloaded again. 3 men from a neighboring tent came out and looked on, grinning and winking at one another. "You've got a right smart load as it is," said one of them, "and it's not me should tell you your business, but I wouldn't tow that tent along if I was you." "Undreamed of!" cried Mercedes, throwing up her hands in dainty dismay. "However in the world could I manage without a tent?" "It's springtime, and you won't get any more cold weather," the man replied. She shook her head decidedly, and Charles and Hall put the last odds and ends on top the mountainous load. "Think it'll right?" one of the men asked. "Why shouldn't it?" Charles demanded rather shortly. "Oh, that's all right, the man hastened meekly to say. "I was just wondering, that is all. It seemed a mite heavy." Charles turned his back and drew the lashings down as well as he could, which was not in the least well. "And of course the dogs can hike along all day with that contraption behind them," affirmed a second of the men. "Certainly," said Hall, with freezing politeness, taking hold of the gee-pole with one hand and swinging his sweep from the other. "Mush!" he shouted. "Mush on there!" The dog sprang against the breastbands, strained hard for a few moments, then relaxed. They were unable to move the sled. "The lazy brutes! I will show them," he cried, preparing to lash out at them with the whip. But Mercedes interfered, crying,
Okay, well done. Nicely read. Okay. Oh dear. This isn't going to end well, is it? Okay, nicely read, April. You've got some smiley things. You've got some smileys, 3 of them actually, and a couple of words. So we've got our old culprit, the silent E in the ED ending. The first word is wrenched. Although we say wretched, and I think that's what you thought it was at first, wretched, but it's wrenched. To wrench She wrenched it. Okay, try it.
Okay, wrenched.
That's it, good. Then prolonged, to prolong something, to make it last longer. A prolonged silence. Okay, prolonged, not prolonged. Try it.
Prolonged.
Very good. And then taught, to teach, I taught. I put it, no, not that kind of taught. Taught, in this context, is tight, okay, to tighten, to tauten something. And it's taut, it means it's tight, okay? Try it.
Taught.
Yeah, it's just like the past of to teach, okay? Then remonstrance, to remonstrate, okay? And remonstrance, okay?
Remonstrance.
Yeah,
Remonstrance.
it's more of an remonstrate, but remonstrance. Let me just find it for you. Yeah. And it's one of those that changes. Okay, so the noun changes from the verb, as you often know. Doesn't always, but to remonstrate and then remonstrance. Okay. Next one, remonstrance. It's to basically reproach somebody, to tell them off, basically. And it's in remonstrances in the nature of telling somebody off. Okay, I try not to remonstrate with you when you make the same mistake, do I? I'm nice like that. Okay, the next one is this is a lovely one. I'm so sorry. Clothes sack. Okay, so even though it's hyphenated, we tend to say clothes sack. So clothes sack. Try it.
Clothes sacks.
Not sucks, sack. Clothes sack.
Clothes sack.
Yeah, think of it as a sack for your clothes. Okay, like we have sleeping bag, we have a clothes sack. Okay, so it's nothing to do with plural. It's just a sack singular for your clothes. A clothes sack. Okay. I tend not to use a clothes sack, but I do use a sack for dirty clothes when I'm camping. I put all the dirty underwear in there to keep it away from the nice, clean, fresh stuff. The next one, silent T, to hasten, hastened.
Hastened. Hastened.
Yeah, good. And the last one, the G pole. I think that must be part of the sled. Yeah, a G pole.
G-pole.
Yeah.
G-pole.
Yeah, the G pole. It's basically the steering part of the sled. It's, I guess, a pole that goes from the driver all the way to the front of the sled. Otherwise, how else would the dogs know which way to go? And it's called the G pole. Who knew that, eh? Anyhow, you get smileys for recuperation. Well done. Congested and cartridges. Yes, you remembered. Not cartridge singular, cartridges plural. So if you want to say those, recuperation, congested, cartridges, just to confirm them in your head.
Recuperation, congested, cartridges.
Very good. Now the last bit is Charles's wife. Okay. Now, often with the possessive, you might say Charles' wife, but we tend to say Charles's. I don't know why, because sometimes we don't bother with that when it ends in an S, but with Charles we tend to. So Charles's wife and Hal's sister. Try it.
Okay. Charles's wife and Hal's sister.
Yeah, not Hall, Hal. Remember Hal in
Hal's.
the video? Daisy, Daisy. Poor old Hal, the computer. So Charles, not Charles, Charles, Charles's wife and Hal's sister.
Charles' wife and Hal's sister.
Yes, well done. Hall is Hall. Okay. So Hal, Hall. Okay. Hello, Nadine. Nice to see you. Okay, and
But I
then
have to pronounce two S's in Charles. It's difficult. Charles.
yes,
Charles.
it's like the first E at the end of Charles is silent, and then you have to sort of add. It's like an extra little E in there. So you got Charles's. Okay, the wife
Charles's.
who's married to Charles. Now, if you notice, using the possessive as well for a wife, it's not always a good idea. Charles's wife, David's wife. I don't belong to David, but I am his wife and he is my husband. So we do use Lynn's husband, David's wife. We do use the possessive, I'm afraid, in relationships like that. Okay. Okay, and then the last one, I just wanted to make sure everybody knows what this word means. If I said it's in the text, and I think Eleanor might know.
Chaffer.
So to chaffer.
Chaffer make warm.
Oh, no, that's to chafe. That's to chafe.
Chafe.
And that can mean to rub. That can actually be nasty. If you chafe, okay, it rubs. You can chafe your hands together in order to get them warm. But I tend to say I rub my hands together to get them warm, because to chafe has this meaning of to rub until sore as well. So I tend to use, rub your hands together, and then, oh no, these shoes are chafing. No, chaffer is to haggle. I thought you might have found it in your list of words. So to chaffer is another word for to haggle, to try and get a good price for something, yeah?
Yes, I have it at my list.
I thought you had. I looked and I thought, okay, she's got it. Okay, it's having it and remembering it are two different things, of course. Okay, so Kwang hasn't managed to join us yet. So Eleanor, if you would be willing and able and ready to read.
Okay, I'm ready.
May I ask something?
I'm sorry, I didn't ask the questions. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. Is it heavy or heavy?
Heavy. That is heavy.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
A heavy load. And what you're thinking of is the verb to heave. To heave. Okay, so they heaved a heavy load. Try that, April.
They heaved a heavy load.
That's it, yes. Good. Thank you, Eleanor. I'm glad I wasn't seeing things. Okay, just so Marco knows, Shiny can't read today. She's not very well. She's got a cough. So I will add you to the list, Marco and Rima. And if we have time, Nidhi, I'll add you to the list as well if you'd like to read. But for now, Eleanor, if you'd like to carry on reading.
But Mercedes interfered, crying, "Oh, Hall, you mustn't," as she caught hold of the whip and wrenched it from him. "The poor dears! Now you must promise you won't be harsh with them for the rest of the trip, or I won't go a step." "Precious lot you know about dogs," her brother sneered, "and I wish you'd leave me alone. They lazy, I tell you, and you've got to whip them to get anything out of them. That's the way. You ask anyone. Ask one of those men." Mercedes looked at them imploringly, until the repugnance at sight of pain written in her pretty face. "The weak as water, if you want to know," came the reply from one of the men, plumb tuckered out. "That's what's the matter. They need a rest." "Rest be blanked," said Hall, with his beardless lips, and Mercedes said, in pain and sorrow at the oath. But she was a clannish creature, and rushed at once to the defence of her brother. "Never mind that man," she said pointedly. "You're driving our dogs, and you do what you think best with them." Again horsewhip fell upon the dogs. They threw themselves against the breastbands, dug their feet into the packed snow, got down low to it, and put forth all their strength. The sled held as though it were an anchor. After 2 efforts they stood still, panting. The whip was whistling savagely when once more Mercedes interfered. She dropped on her knees before Buck, with tears in her eyes, and put her arms around his neck. "You poor dears," she cried sympathetically. "Why don't you pull hard? Then you wouldn't be whipped." Buck did not like her, but he was feeling too miserable to resist her, taking it as part of the day's miserable work. One of the onlookers, who had been clenching his teeth to suppress hot speech, now spoke up. "It's not that I care a whoop what becomes of you, but for the dogs' sakes, I just want to tell you you can help them a mighty lot by breaking out that sled. The runners are froze fast. Throw your weight against the gee-pole, right and left, and break it out." A third time the attempt was made, but this time, following the advice, all broke out the runners, which had been frozen to the snow. The overloaded and unwieldy sled forged ahead. Buck and his mates struggling frantically under the rain of blows. 100 yards ahead the path turned and sloped steeply into the main street. It would have required an experienced man to keep the top-heavy sled upright, and Hall was not such a man. As they swung on the turn, the sled went over, spilling half its load through the loose lashings. The dogs never stopped. The lightened sled bounded on its side behind them. They were angry because of the ill treatment they had received and the unjust load. Buck was raging. He broke into a run, the team following his lead. All cried, "Wah, wah," but they gave no heed. He tripped and was pulled off his feet. The capsized sled ground over him, and the dogs dashed on up the street, adding to the gaiety of Skogay, as they scattered the remainder of the outfit along its chief thoroughfare. Kind-hearted citizens caught the dogs and gathered up the scattered belongings. Also they gave advice. Half the load and twice the dogs, if they ever expected to reach Dawson, was what was said. Hall and his sister and brother-in-law listened unwillingly, pitched tent, and overhauled the outfit. Canned goods were turned out that made men laugh, for canned goods on the long trail is a thing to dream about. "Blankets for a hotel," quoth one of the men who laughed and helped. "Half as many is too much. Get rid of them. Throw away the tent and all the dishes. Who's going to wash them anyway? Good Lord, do you think you're traveling on a Pullman?" And so it went, the inexorable elimination of the superfluous. Mercedes cried when her clothes bags were dumped on the ground and article after article was thrown out. She cried in general, and she cried in particular over each discarded thing. She clasped hands about knees, rocking back and forth broken-heartedly. She vowed she would not go an inch, not for a dozen Charleses. She appealed to everybody and to everything, finally wiping her eyes and proceeding to cast out even articles of apparel that were imperative necessaries. And in her zeal, when she had finished with her own, she attacked the belongings of her men and went through them like a tornado. This accomplished, the outfit, though cut in half, was still a formidable bulk. Charles and Hall went out in the evening and bought 6 outside dogs. These added to the 6 of the original team, and Tigger Kuna, the Huskies obtained at the Ring Rapids on the record trip, brought the team up to 14. But the outside dogs, though practically broken in since the landing, did not amount to much. 3 were short-haired pointers, 1 was a Newfoundland, and the other 2 were mongrels of indeterminate breed. They did not seem to know anything, these newcomers. Buck and his comrades looked upon them with disgust, and though he speedily taught them their places and what not to do, he could not teach them what to do. They did not take kindly to trace and trail. With the exception of the 2 mongrels, they were bewildered and spirit-broken by the strange savage environment in which they found themselves and by the ill treatment they had received. The 2 mongrels were without spirit at all. Bones were the only things breakable about them.
Okay, well
With the
done.
newcomer-
Yeah,
Oh,
stop.
Alarm clock.
Stop. You have to stop eventually. Otherwise, we'll finish the whole book. Very nicely read. Well done. Okay, there's a couple of words, and I'm going to repeat, although Al isn't in the book. It's Hal, not Hall. Hal is a common name. Especially Prince Hal in
okay.
Prince Hal in Shakespeare. So Hal is like Al, okay? Not like Hall and all. If you notice double L, you've got the all sound, and with the single L, it's more of an Al sound, okay? Not always, it's English pronunciation, but Hal, Al. Try it.
Hal, Al.
That's
Hal,
better,
Al.
yes. Then the next one, lips. Yep, your mouth has 2 lips.
Lips.
That's
lips.
it. Good. And
This
then
one is silly.
well, if you listen, you'll hear that it went a bit awry. Then Mercedes. I can't let you say Mercedes wrongly because science would never forgive me. So Mercedes, okay?
Mercedes, okay.
Not Mercedes, Mercedes.
Oh, Mercedes.
That's it.
Yes, because
oh Lord,
it's
won't you buy me
when
a
I saw it,
Mercedes
Socrates.
Benz? Okay, the next one, it's when you want a horse to stop, or in this case the dogs, you go, whoa.
Whoa.
Yeah, like woe is me almost, but it means stop. Whoa, Neddy. Not wah. Wah wah is more the sound a baby might make when crying. Wah, wah. So whoa, okay?
Whoa.
That's it, yeah. Might save your life one day, that, on a runaway horse. Then inexorable. You've got to get the able at the end. Yeah, that's it.
Inexorable.
And the next one is also your favourite, all articles.
Yeah. Articles.
Yeah, that's it. You know it.
I know.
Okay, well done. The Mercedes-Benz, that's the one, Shiny. But it's also somebody's name. It's a name, usually a girl's name, Mercedes. I think Robin Hobb has a character.
Name.
Yeah, I think probably. I know it from Robin Hobb books because there's a Mercedes in there. Now, in the text, I just want to confirm everybody knows what the heck these people were talking about when they said you're not travelling on a Pullman. Does anybody not know what that means? If you're travelling on a Pullman?
Yes, but it was used earlier.
But it's not a car.
It was earlier. No, it's bigger. Like a
not a rickshaw. No, it's a train. It's a train carriage. Yeah. You're not in a train. You can't take everything with you. Okay. My husband says this to me sometimes when I'm packing to go camping, by the way. So a Pullman is a type of carriage on a train. It's a type of train, especially in this time. Yeah, they were a very famous a Pullman berth, and when you say a Pullman car, it's actually the sleeping cars. Okay. And it's a very American thing, but I know it from reading westerns, etc. He says you're not travelling on a Pullman. In other words, you can't take everything but the kitchen sink with you. You can't pack that lot. The poor dogs, they're trying to pull it. You've got pots and pans and canned goods. No, you take dried goods. You don't take the tent. You don't take anything unnecessary. It could cost you your life. Okay? So, nicely read. Well done. Let's move on, and the next person to read, bear with me a second whilst I save April's. Next person to read is Crystal. Crystal, we haven't actually figured out whether you've got voice yet. I know you're a cloud, but have you got voice? Can you speak? Okay. Crystal. Loading typing. I think, Crystal, you've actually got connection issues. No. 222 means, remember, can't hear. And with the cloud, you have got a white dot, but remember you have to click on the microphone to get it to work. You need to switch your mic on. Okay, Nidhi, we're here on this book. Okay. And from this part. Okay, I'm reading it from Gutenberg. Marco's reading it from eBiblio. I don't think it's working for you. No. We keep getting this. If you look at the recording later, you'll see loading. And that usually means you've got a connection issue. It's good that you can hear us, but you might not be able to take part in the reading. I'm sorry. That is unfortunately what can happen. Marco, can we hear you? Can you hear us? Can you hear us? Can we hear you?
Hello.
Hello. Good. Okay, so Marco, do you know? Are you? Oh, I've lost myself. Are you up to the point in the book where you can start reading?
Just a second. From Tornado, no?
It's from
where
With the Newcomers Hopeless and Forlorn.
Oh, okay. Yes,
Have you got it? Yep. Okay.
Yes, I have. With the newcomers hopeless and forlorn, and the old team worn out by 2,500 miles of continuous trail, the outlook was anything but bright. The two men, however, were quite cheerful, and they were proud too. They were doing the thing in style, with 14 dogs. They had seen other sleds depart over the pass of Fort Dawson, or come in from Dawson, but never had they seen a sled with so many as 14 dogs. In the nature of Arctic travel, there was a reason why 14 dogs should not drag one sled, and that was that one sled could not carry the food for 14 dogs. But Charles and Hal did not know this. They had worked the trip out with a pencil. So much to a dog, so many dogs, so many days. Q.E.D. Mercedes looked over their shoulders and nodded comprehensively. It was all so very simple. Late next morning, Buck led the long team up the street. There was nothing lively about it. No snap or go in him and his fellows. They were starting dead weary. 4 times he had covered the distance between Saltwater and Dawson, and the knowledge that, jaded and tired, he was facing the same trail once more, made him bitter. His heart was not in the work, nor was the heart of any dog. The outsides were timid and frightened, the insides without confidence in their masters. Buck felt vaguely that there was no depending upon these two men and the woman. They did not know how to do anything, and as the days went by, it became apparent that they could not learn. They were slack in all things, without order or discipline. It took them half the night to pitch a slovenly camp, and half the morning to break the camp and get the sled loaded in fashion so slovenly that for the rest of the day they were occupied in stopping and rearranging the load. Some days they did not make 10 miles. On other days they were unable to get started at all. And on no day did they succeed in making more than half the distance used by the men in a basis in their dog food computation. It was inevitable that they should go short on dog food, but they hastened it by overfeeding, bringing the day nearer when underfeeding would commence. The outside dogs, whose digestions had not been trained by chronic famine to make the most of little, had voracious appetite. And when, in addition to this, the worn-out huskies pulled weakly, Hal decided that the orthodox ration was too small. He doubled it, and to cap it all, when Mercedes, with tears in her pretty eyes and a quiver in her throat, could not cajole him into giving the dogs still more, she stole from the fish sacks and fed them slyly. But it was not food that Buck and the huskies needed, but rest, and though they were making poor time, the heavy load they dragged sapped their strength severely. Then came the underfeeding. Hal awoke one day to the fact that his dog food was half gone and the distance only quarter covered. Further, that for love or money no additional dog food was to be obtained. So he cut down even the orthodox ration and tried to increase the day's travel. His sister and brother-in-law seconded him, but they were frustrated by their heavy outfit and their own incompetence. It was a simple matter to give the dogs less food, but it was impossible to make the dogs travel faster, while their own inability to get underway earlier in the morning prevented them from traveling longer hours. Not only did they not know how to work dogs, but they did not know how to work themselves. The first to go was Dub. Poor blundering thief that he was, always getting caught and punished, he had nonetheless been a faithful worker. His wrenched shoulder blade, untreated and unrested, went from bad to worse, till finally Hal shot him with the big Colt's revolver. It is saying of the country that an outside dog starves to death on the ration of the husky, so the 6 outside dogs under Buck could do no less than die on half the ration of the husky. The Newfoundland went first, followed by the 3 short-haired pointers, the 2 mongrels hanging more grittily on to life, but going in the end. By this time, all the amenities and gentleness of the Southland and had fallen away from the three people. Short of its glamour and romance, Arctic travel became to them a reality too harsh for their manhood and womanhood. Mercedes ceased weeping over the dogs, being too occupied with weeping over herself and with quarreling with her husband and brother. To quarrel was the one thing they were never too weary to do. Their irritability arose out of their misery, increased with it, doubled upon it, outdistanced it. The wonderful patience of the trail which comes to men who toil hard and suffer sore, and remain sweet of speech and kindly, did not come to these two men and the woman. They had no inkling of such a patience. They were stiff and in pain. Their muscles ached, their bones ached, their very hearts ached, and because of this they became sharp of speech, and hard words were first on their lips in the morning and last at night.
Very good. Well done. Nicely read. Yes. Never go to bed with harsh words on your lips. Okay, so nicely done. A couple of smileys and a couple of hang on. Okay, I've got the wrong word there. Okay, a couple of smileys and a couple of phrases. Let's have a look at the individual words first. Okay, so vaguely, it's a silent E. To be vague, that's to be vague. And then you've got the adverb vaguely. Okay, try it.
Vaguely.
Very good. Then overfeeding, to overfeed somebody. You've got overeating, and then you have overfeeding. Okay, overfeeding. Try it.
Overfeeding.
Very good. A voracious appetite. Okay, you have a voracious appetite for English.
Voracious.
Very good. And then if you can't speak because you're so emotional, your voice might quaver. To quaver. Ooh, quavering. Try it.
Quaver.
That's it. Not quiver, quaver with a long A. Okay.
Okay.
Now the next one isn't a long A. It's actually ration. So it's like rat, ration.
Okay.
Try it.
Like Russian.
That's
Yeah,
it. Like
Russian.
no, there's a difference. Russian, ration. Okay. There was a lot of rationing in Russia once. Okay. But you got a and a. Ration. Okay. Is the rat sound. Okay. The next one, simple.
Simple.
Yeah, simple. It's simple. And then again, same
Simple
word.
to make mistakes.
Yeah, it is very easy to make mistakes. Yeah, it's just learning. It's all learning. And the next one's the same as April. Wrenched, not wretched. Wrenched. Silent E.
Wrenched.
That's it. Quarrel. When you argue, you quarrel and bicker. So quarrel.
Quarrel.
And another silent E.
Okay.
Outdistanced.
Quarrel. Quarrel.
Quarrel. Quarrel. Try again. Quarrel.
Quarrel.
That's better, yeah. Then outdistanced.
Quarrel.
Not qua.
Outdistanced.
You say it correctly and then you say it wrong again. Quarrel. Let me get you the
Quarrel.
not quarrel, quarrel. Let me get you the phonetics, okay? So quarrel. Here it is. Oh, hang on. There it is. Quarrel. Okay?
Quarrel.
That's it. That's it. Well done. Okay, the next one, outdistanced. Again, silent E. To outdistance somebody, they outdistanced them. Okay?
Outdistanced.
That's it. And the next one, it's not like incline, it's to have an inkling. An inkling.
Inkling.
Yeah, it's a lovely word, an inkling. It's like to have an idea that something is in a particular way. Not sure, but I have an inkling. Okay? Okay, and then the next one, I think you just misread a couple of prepositions. And prepositions are one of the things in English you have to get a feel for. Okay, so just repeat. The men as a basis.
The man as a basis.
And then prevented them from.
Prevented them from.
Okay, I definitely heard in and for, but you can listen to the recording and just check. It's tricky with prepositions because they come and go so quickly, but I think you just popped your own prepositions in there. Which means it's good. It means you're getting a feeling for prepositions, but it means sometimes your feeling's a bit wrong, okay?
Okay.
And you get 2
As
smileys. Hal, well done. And mongrels. Mongrels. Leica is a mongrel. Very good. Any questions before we move on? In what way, April? Really, what? It's like when you say why. You have to tell me what your really is for. Is that implied to Eleanor?
Leica is a mongrel?
Yeah, she's a mongrel. No
Mongrel
idea
is-
what's in her.
Mongrel is not pure, eh?
She's not a pure
From
breed.
one
No,
race.
no. I'm a mongrel. Bit of Welsh, bit of English. Okay, so not a pure breed. Yeah, best kind of dog, mongrels. We don't even know what's fully in her, but we suspect it's terrier and German Shepherd or Alsatian.
And crossbreed is different.
Crossbreed tends to imply 2, okay, and mongrel tends to imply Heinz 57, we sometimes call them, a Heinz 57, which is the name of a soup manufacturer, Heinz 57, 57 varieties. So if you call a dog a Heinz 57, you mean there's 57 varieties of dog inside them. Mongrel, yeah. Much more mixed breed than crossbreed. A crossbreed tends to be something like a cockapoo or a labradoodle. Mix up a Labrador and a poodle, you get a labradoodle. Mix up a cocker spaniel and a poodle, you get a cockadoodle or whatever. I don't know. Cockapoo, yeah, something like that. Cockadoodle doo. I don't know. Anyway, let's. How are we doing for time? Okay, if everybody's got time, then Nidhi, would you like to do some reading? Can we hear you? Can you hear us? Can we hear you?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yay!
Can you hear me?
I can hear you too. Good. So I'm afraid Nidhi will have to be the last person to read today, but we will see about next week. Try to be on time to get on the reading list because I kind of work out the timings from how many people are here at the beginning of the session. So Nidhi, you're lucky that Kwon
So
crashed.
I can start reading.
Sorry, Nidhi?
Your voice is breaking. Actually, I am not able to hear what you are saying.
Okay, I can hear you.
Can you-
Okay.
Okay. So
that's the most
should I
important
start
thing.
reading?
Yes, whenever you're ready.
I had to read from Charles and Hal Wendell, right? From there.
Okay, you're reading from Charles and Hal Rangold. Yeah.
Yeah. Charles and Hal wrangled whenever Mercedes gave them a chance. It was cherished belief of each that he did more than his share of the work, and neither forbore to speak this belief at every opportunity. Sometimes Mercedes sided with her husband, sometimes with her brother. The result was a beautiful and unending family quarrel, starting from a dispute as to which should chop a few sticks for the fire, a dispute which concerned only Charles and Hal presently would be loved in the rest of the family, fathers, mothers, uncles, cousins, people thousands of miles away, and some of them dead. That Hal's view on art, or the sort of society place his mother's brother wore, should have anything to do with the chopping of a few sticks of firewood passes comprehension. Nevertheless, the quarrel was as likely to tend in that direction as in the direction of Charles' political prejudice, and that Charles' sister's tale bearing tongue should be relevant to the building of a Yukon fire was apparent only to Mercedes, who discerned herself of copious opinions upon that topic, and incidentally upon a few other traits unpleasantly peculiar to her husband's family. In the meantime, the fire remained unbuilt, the camp half pitched, and the dogs unfed. Mercedes nursed a special grievance, the grievance of sex. She was pretty and soft, and had been chivalrously treated all her days. But the present treatment by her husband and brother was everything save chivalrous. It was her custom to be helpless, they complained, upon which impeachment of what to her was her most essential sex prerogative, she made their lives unendurable. She no longer considered the dogs, and because she was sore and tired, she persisted in riding on the sled. She was pretty and soft, but she weighed 120 pounds. A lusty last straw to the load dragged by the weak and starving animals. She rode for days, till they fell in the traces and the sled stood still. Charles and Hal begged her to get off and walk, pleaded with her, entreated the while she wept and importuned heaven with the recital of their brutality. On one occasion we took her off the sled by main strength. They never did it again. She let her legs go limp like a spoiled child and sat down on the trail. They went on their way, but she did not move. After they had traveled 3 miles, they unloaded the sled, come back for her, and by main strength put her on the sled again. In the excess of their own misery, they were callous to the suffering of their animals. Hal's theory, which he practiced on the others, was that one must get hardened. He had started out preaching it to his sister and brother-in-law. Failing there, he hammered it into the dog with a club, and the 5 fingers the dog food gave out, and the toothless old squaw offered to trade them a few pounds of frozen horse hide for the Colt's revolver that kept the big hunting knife company at Hall's Head. A poor substitute for food was this hide, just as it had been stripped from the starved horses of the cattlemen 6 months back. In its frozen state, it was more like strips of galvanized iron, and when a dog wrestled into his stomach, it thawed into thin and innutritious leathery strings, into a mass of short hair, irritating and indigestible. And through it all Buck staggered along at the head of the team as in a nightmare. He pulled when he could no longer pull. He fell down and remained down till blows from whip or club drove him to his feet again. All the stiffness and gloss had gone out of his beautiful furry coat. The hair hung down, limp and wrinkled, or matted with bright blood where Hal's club had bruised him. His muscle had wasted away to knotty strings, and the flesh pad had disappeared, so that each rib and every bone in his frame were outlined cleanly through the loose hide that was wrinkled in fold of emptiness. It was heartbreaking. Only Bug's heart was unbreakable. The man in the red sweater had proved that.
Very good. Well done. Okay. I know, Shiny. And you can't read to take your mind off it and concentrate on the words rather than the meaning. Oh, it's a very sad book. It's a very sad book. Okay, so we will have to stop there, but I'll give Nidhi her feedback first. Okay. So bear with me a second. Okay, so let's have a look at the individual words first. Poor Buck. Okay, so the first word is, actually you said it correctly later, so let's just confirm it's quarrel, to argue, bicker, quarrel.
Quarrel.
Not quarrel, quar, like an O sound, quarrel, like horror.
Quarrel.
That's better, yes. Argue, bicker, quarrel. Okay, good. Then prejudices. It's not like ice, baby. It's prejudice.
Prejudice.
Not prejudice, prejudice. Like is.
Prejudice.
Yeah, like hiss, is.
Prejudice.
That's it, prejudice. So then you've got prejudices, plural, prejudices.
Prejudices.
That's it. I mean, we all have little prejudices, don't we? Okay. I'm prejudiced against lager and cold beer. I like proper beer. It's a prejudice. Okay, the next one, apparent. So it starts with an and then goes to an a. Apparent.
Apparent.
That's it. Careful not to say apparent. Make sure it doesn't sound like a parent. It's apparent. Like parrot. Parrot. Apparent.
Apparent.
That's better. That's better. Try and make it a bit quicker. Apparent.
Apparent.
That's much better. Good. And then when you've got a lot of something, you have copious amounts. Okay? Copious.
Copious.
Not co.
Copious.
That's it. Copious. Well done. And the next one, you've got to get the in the middle. Special. Special.
Special.
Much better. Good. Then chivalrous. Chivalry. To be chivalrous.
Chivalrous. Chivalrous.
That's it. Good. And then to persist. Persisted. You have to be persistent when you're learning English. So, and you have persisted today. Well done. Persisted. Try it.
Persisted.
Very good. Then Eleanor will give you a hug for this one. Miles. You've got to get the ul at the end. Miles.
Miles.
That's it. Very good. Came. You've got to get this long a. To come. They came.
Came.
That's it. Good. And then careful of the th sound. don't let your teeth touch. Don't let your tongue touch your teeth when you're making the th sound. It goes near your teeth and you breathe through your tongue, but it mustn't touch. Otherwise, you will say true, and it's not. It's through, through. That's better. Yeah, it's difficult when you're. It's not so bad when you're saying the word on its own. It can be tough when you're speaking naturally in a whole sentence. Yeah, but just be aware not to get that t sound. It's always got to train your tongue through, through. That's it. And the next one is whip, whip. Sometimes somebody might say whip, but it's whip, not wipe. To whip somebody with a whip. Yeah, that's it. Good. And the next one, it's actually plural, so it's thousands of miles away. 1,000 miles away, but thousands of miles away, even further.
Thousands of miles away.
That's it. It's not like the song, and I would walk 500 miles. It's thousands of miles. Good. Well done. Okay, Mohit, how do we pronounce, not how we pronounce, how should we pronounce, or how do you pronounce peculiar? Peculiar. Do you want to try it, Mohit? In fact, actually, Mohit, I know you were a little late today, so do you want to just see if you've got your mic working? Do you want to try your mic? Oh. Ooh, my computer's not behaving today. I don't know why, but that's better. So Mohit, can we hear you? Have you got your mic working?
Oh, yeah.
Hello. Hi, nice to hear you.
Yes.
Do you want to try it then?
I just wanted to peculiar.
Yeah, okay. American style, that's fine. Peculiar. They will say that. I tend to say you rather than ooh, but it's an American thing. Americans tend to say ooh, peculiar, and then I say peculiar. So either is okay. So it's great that you've got voice working. I'm sorry you won't be able to read today, but as I said, it's best to be on time. And unfortunately today I've got to finish in a reasonable amount of time. I can't go on until 12 o'clock.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, carry on. What were you saying?
Yeah, it's fine.
Oh, okay,
I was
good.
new to this, that's why.
But well done, well done. Exactly, Mirko. If you don't read, you don't make any mistakes. And I hope you learn from other people's. I mean, they're not really mistakes. They're just things that need a bit of work. April, is that a question? But the present treatment by her husband and brother was everything.
Yeah,
it's like saying everything but.
Part. Yeah, that is it, what I want to say. Was everything but chivalrous.
Yes, exactly.
That's
I mean,
okay,
save in this
thank you.
case, it's not like to save. Okay, it's not like I save my money every week, or you can save a lot of money by not smoking. It's everything but. It's a slightly different meaning of the word save. It's like except. Okay, everything except or everything but. Okay. So you can use it as a sort of replacement word. It's a little bit literary English, okay, but you could say everything. Oh, hang on a second. You could say everything except chivalrous, or everything other than chivalrous, or everything but chivalrous. In other words, they were not being chivalrous. Okay, so we will carry on next week from as it was with Buck, so was it with his mates. Another little bit of literary English. As it was, so it shall be. Okay. And I'll give you the link to the corrections from today in case you want to remind yourself. Okay, and remember, because we're streaming, as long as the streaming has worked, you will be able to just check what I heard, what you can hear, and what you thought you said. Because I often think, I know it happens in German, I think I've said something absolutely perfectly and I keep getting corrected and it's really annoying. But when I listen to myself, I think, oh no, they were right. My brain didn't hear what I actually said. Okay, I will hopefully see you in another session this week. If not, same place next week. Now remember, you need to be a member of the Learn English book club in Kitely in order to come to some of our sessions, but not all of them. Okay, so tomorrow's session will be held in the main sim. You don't need to be a member for that, but for these sessions, the reading sessions in the smaller sims, you do. I'll leave this sim open for 30 minutes to an hour if you want to explore a bit, but then it will close down, so make sure you log out, otherwise you'll be rudely ejected, I'm afraid. But that's how these sessions kind of run, just to keep the costs down. Okay. You're welcome. Thank you for coming, Nidhi. And Christo, I'm so sorry you weren't able to read. Maybe next time. Have a word. As I say, I keep seeing this loading on just above your head, above your little cloud, and it tends to mean there's an upload problem or a connection problem. Maybe have a word with Aladdin tonight. Aladdin runs a session. He's very good at helping you tweak your settings. Yes, exactly. You can listen.
Tomorrow, speaking club session, what I have to do?
Sorry, Nidhi. Your question?
You have just said what I have to do for speaking club session tomorrow.
Yes, just come to the normal sim tomorrow. Don't try to get into this sim. So make sure you log into Kitely and join through the Learn English Network link. Okay, that way it won't try to get you into here. How can I be the member of all Kitely sessions in one time? I'm not sure what you mean, Mohit. But you're a member of this now, so you're fine. But if people are watching this streaming and then wonder why they're not in the winter sim and they can't get in, it's because you have to be a member of the book club. Okay, you are a member of the group, yes, so that's fine. You can get into any session. Just ask for a teleport. Don't panic. And keep an eye on the calendar. As I say, the times do change, but there is a Kitely session Monday to Friday, different times of the day, and you're welcome to join any of them. Okay. If you do go into the main sim, the Academy sim, watch out for the robot. I still haven't caught him. I'm so sorry. He's running amok. Yeah, the main thing is the calendar. Exactly. What's that? How does it go? Calendar.
Though, as I say, not as I do, you know it very well. So about
I do,
me.
but I check the calendar too.
Yeah.
I do check the calendar. I have to, just to see what other people are doing. Okay, so I will speak to you anon. Any questions, just ask on the forum, in World. I'll get the message eventually. Take care, bye. And carry on chatting amongst yourselves. As I say, I'll keep the sim open for an hour if you want to carry on speaking. Okay.
Lynn,
Oh,
I
yes,
don't
April.
I don't see Mohit in the members group.
He is, because
I
he's
don't
here.
see him.
I did invite him, so you
Yes?
might need. Yeah, I invited him, and I think he accepted. So let me have a look. Groups, alien members, view info, roles. Okay. No, it says already in the group, so it's not refreshed yet. Okay, so he is already a member. I mean, honestly, I mean, as you know, it's technology; it could go wrong, but shouldn't be able to be here unless he's a member of the group. So, and it's saying he is a member. I think we just need to wait for the software to catch up. Okay, you might need to refresh your cache. Take care then. I've got to go now. Bye.
A calumnious, sheer, and unutterable. Both men were manifestly out of place, and why such as they should adventure the north is part of the mystery of things that passes understanding. Buckhurst, the chaffering, saw the money pass between the man and the government agent, and knew that the Scotch half-breed and the mail train drivers were passing out of his life on the heels of Perrault and Francois and the others who had gone before. When driven with his mates to the new owner's camp, Buck saw a slipshod and slovenly affair. Tent half stretched, dishes unwashed, everything in disorder. Also he saw a woman. Mercedes, the man called her. She was Charles' wife and Hall's sister, a nice family party. Buck watched them apprehensively as they proceeded to take down the tent and load the sled. There was a great deal of effort about their manner, but no business-like method. The tent was rolled into an awkward bundle 3 times as large as it should have been. The tin dishes were packed away unwashed. Mercedes continually fluttered in the way of her men and kept up an unbroken chattering of remonstrance and advice. When they put a cloth sack on the front of the sled, she suggested it should go on the back, and when they had put it on the back and covered it over with a couple of other bundles, she discovered overlooked articles which could abide nowhere else but in that very sack, and they unloaded again. 3 men from a neighboring tent came out and looked on, grinning and winking at one another. "You've got a right smart load as it is," said one of them, "and it's not me should tell you your business, but I wouldn't tow that tent along if I was you." "Undreamed of," cried Mercedes.
No, not that kind of taught. Taught in this context is tight. Okay, to tighten, to tauten something. And it's taut, it means it's tight. Okay, try it.
Taught.
Yeah, it's just like the past of to teach. Okay, then remonstrance, to remonstrate. Okay, and remonstrance. Okay.
A remonstrance.
Yeah,
remonstrance.
It's more of an remonstrate, but remonstrance. Let me just find
remonstrance.
It for you. Yeah. And it's one of those that changes. Okay, so the noun changes from the verb, as you often know. Doesn't always, but to remonstrate and then remonstrance. Okay. Next one. Remonstrance, it's to basically reproach somebody, to tell them off, basically. And it's in remonstrances in the nature of telling somebody off. Okay, I try not to remonstrate with you when you make the same mistake, do I? I'm nice like that. Okay, the next one is this is a lovely one. I'm so sorry. Clothes sack. Okay, so even though it's hyphenated, we tend to say clothes sack. So clothes sack. Try it.
Clothes sacks.
Not sucks, sack. Clothes sack.
Clothes sack.
Yeah, think of it as a sack for your clothes. Okay, like we have sleeping bag, we have a clothes sack. Okay, so it's nothing to do with plural. It's just a sack singular for your clothes. A clothes sack. Okay. I tend not to use a clothes sack, but I do use a sack for dirty clothes when I'm camping. I put all the dirty underwear in there to keep it away from the nice, clean, fresh stuff. The next one, silent T, to hasten, hastened.
Hastened. Hastened.
Yeah, good. And the last one, the G pole. I think that must be part of the sled. Yeah, a G pole.
G-pole.
Yeah.
Jeeped traces stout, and on the down grades, just managed to keep out of the way of the sled. March on, poor sore feet, the driver encouraged them as they tottered down the main street of Skagway. This is the last. Then we get one long rest, eh? For sure, one bully long rest. The drivers confidently expected a long stopover. Themselves, they had covered 1,200 miles with 2 days' rest, and in the nature of reason and common justice, they deserved an interval of loafing. But so many were the men who had rushed into the Klondike, and so many were the sweethearts, wives, and kin that had not rushed in, that the congested mail was taking on alpine proportions. Also there were official orders. Fresh batches of Hudson Bay dogs were to take the places of those worthless for the trail. The worthless ones were to be got rid of, and since dogs count for little against dollars, they were to be sold. 3 days passed, by which time Buck and his mates found him how really tired and weak they were. Then, on the morning of the 4th day, 2 men from the States came along and bought them, harness and all, for a song. The men addressed each other as Hall and Charles. Charles was a middle-aged, lightish-colored man, with weak and watery eyes, and a mustache that twisted fiercely and vigorously up, giving the lie to the limply drooping lip it concealed. Hall was a young officer of 19 or 20, with a big Colt's revolver and a hunting knife strapped about him on a belt that fairly bristled with cartridges. This belt was the most salient thing about him. It advertised his callousness.
So, April, whenever you're ready, don't forget to unmute.
Okay. I'm ready. Chapter 5, The Toil of Trace and Trail. 30 days from the time it left Dawson, the saltwater mill, with Buck and his mates at the fore, arrived at Skagway. They were in a wretched state, worn out and worn down. Buck's 140 pounds had dwindled to 115. The rest of his mates, though lighter dogs, had relatively lost more weight than he. Pike, the malingerer, who in his lifetime of deceit had often successfully feigned a hurt leg, was now limping in earnest. So Lex was limping, and Dub was suffering from a wrenched shoulder blade. They were all terribly footsore. No spring or rebound was left in them. Their feet fell heavily on the trail, jarring their bodies and doubting the fatigue of a day's travel. There was nothing the matter with them except that they were dead tired. It was not the dead tiredness that comes through brief and excessive effort, from which recovery is a matter of hours, but it was the tiredness that comes through the slow and prolonged strength drainage of months of toil. There was no power of recuperation left, no reserved strength to call upon. It had been all used, the last least bit of it. Every muscle, every fiber, every cell was tired, dead tired. And there was a reason for it. In less than 5 months, they had traveled 2,500 miles, during the last 1,800 of which they had had but 5 days' rest. When they arrived at Skagway, they were apparently on their last legs. They could barely keep throwing up her hands in dainty dismay. However in the world could I manage without a tent? It's springtime, and you won't get any more cold weather, the man replied. She shook her head decidedly, and Charles and Hall put the last odds and ends on top the mountainous load. Think it'll right? One of the men asked. Why shouldn't it? Charles demanded rather shortly. Oh, that's all right, the man hastened meekly to say. I was just wondering. That is all. It seemed a mite heavy. Charles turned his back and drew the lashings down as well as he could, which was not in the least well. And of course the dogs can hike along all day with that contraption behind them, affirmed a second of the men. Certainly, said Hall, with freezing politeness, taking hold of the gee-pole with one hand and swinging his whip from the other. Mush! He shouted. Mush on there! The dog sprang against the breastbands, strained hard for a few moments, then relaxed. They were unable to move the sled. The lazy brutes! I will show them, he cried, preparing to lash out at them with the whip. But Mercedes interfered, crying.
Okay, well
Thank you.
done. Nicely read. Okay. Oh dear. This isn't going to end well, is it? Okay, nicely read, April. You've got some smiley things. You've got some smileys, 3 of them actually, and a couple of words. So we've got our old culprit, the silent E in the ED ending. The first word is wrenched. Although we say wretched, and I think that's what you thought it was at first, wretched, but it's wrenched. To wrench, she wrenched it. Okay, try it.
Okay, wrenched.
That's it, good. Then prolonged. To prolong something, to make it last longer. A prolonged silence. Okay, prolonged, not prolonged. Try it.
Prolonged.
Very good. And then taught. To teach, I taught. I taught a